When choosing knit fabric to sew garments with, like t-shirts and leggings and pants, it is important that you are going for the right knit. There are really, literally tons of different knit content out there, knit fabric. And I just want to go over a few that if you haven't sewn with knits before or you still don't feel comfortable, you might appreciate this help. What I like to go for when I choose my knits is a moderate stretch, something like this. This here is from Art Gallery Fabrics. It is amazing and it curls at the end when you cut it, but that's not a problem. Normally this is a pre-washed piece, pre-washed and dried. That's why it curls up like this. When you're getting ready to sew or cut your fabric, simply cut this edge off and whatever is left is going to be straight cut again. I'll talk about the difference of the material, of the stretch, of the feel. This is a very soft material, although absolutely fantastic to sew garments with, like t-shirts and leggings. There are differences in the stretch. This is a four-way stretch, meaning it has comfort all the way around without it being too flimsy or too wiggly to sew with. So this is a very, very good material. You pay probably an average of about $15 a yard. You can catch it on sale on Etsy. It's well worth the money. Okay, I have already pre-cut my example that I'm going to show you how to sew the neckband onto a t-shirt pattern. So I cut out a little piece of the Easy Tee, which is a free pattern that I just made, and as you can see, the edges won't curl anymore, which is awesome. So it's easy to work with. You would just fold the neckband over and then you can very easily sew this on or serge it in one step, but we're going over this in just a little bit. Another knit fabric I highly recommend for beginners is this rib knit. It's this particular one is from organiccottonplus.com, a wonderful company that makes organic cottons and fibers, and this rib knit is absolutely fantastic. It also has a slight stretch going in the vertical direction. Horizontally it is nice and stretchy, and normally people like to use rib knit for the bands because it has an awesome stretch and an awesome recovery. Recovery means that once you stretch a fabric and let it go, it goes back to its original length. So this is very important for t-shirts because you don't want to wear your t-shirt out by just one time wearing. And so by using a high quality knit fabric with a good stretch recovery, you won't have this effect. Like for example, the cheap t-shirts you can buy at a big grocery store, and that you can get for like $3 or $4, they probably won't hold up as much. So go for a rib knit. It is also very lightweight, although there are differences, but this is a very highly recommendable material to sew stretchy garments with. Okay, let's talk about sewing on a neckband to a t-shirt using the correct material, which I'm going to be using this rib knit here that I showed you just earlier. The reason I want to talk a little bit about the details here of sewing this neckband on. The reason you want to use a good stretchy material is because a neckline has a big curve going like right here. This is the front piece of that t-shirt that we're going to sew, and in order for this fabric to go along the neckline into a curve, if you sew it on just by laying it flat and pinning it just the way it lays down like this, you will most likely not have a nicely neckline at the end. Because what happens if you don't stretch this neckline while you sew it like this, what happens later on, the neckband will become wavy. It won't lay flat, and that is a very big issue for seamstresses. That the problem is simply in how much can you stretch this band over the t-shirt fabric without stretching the t-shirt. Of course, this t-shirt has to stay unstretched like this. If you choose a fabric that does not have a good stretch, you will have a wavy neckline, and I'm going to show you an example of the difference, how it looks with the neckline sewn on, the neckband sewn on without stretching, and then later after that the neckband once it's nicely stretched over the entire neckline. Okay, here I have my serger set up for serging this neckline onto the little t-shirt example I cut out here for you. And in this first example, I'm going to show you how the neckline looks if it is not stretched over the neckline cut out on the t-shirt. Okay, so I usually don't pin the whole thing. Once I get ready to serge, I just pin the first, the beginning. Okay, now I can remove this pin because I don't want to serge over it. So what I do now, I insert the piece here onto my serger, and I will serge without stretching anything, which means I will just go as I would normally serge two pieces of fabric together, not a rounded neckline or some kind of other opening. So here I get into, I'm reaching the neckline, the lowest part of the neckline curve right here. So I have to move the neckline fabric a little bit so this edge here becomes more straight, because my neckband is straight. I still don't stretch anything. I'm just going like this in small steps. I readjust my neckband to fit along the edge of the neckline. Okay, now we have finished the lowest part of the curve or the neckline. Now I'm going to sew back up on the other side, still adjusting the material underneath that has the curve, and I'm still not stretching either of these pieces. Okay, here I'm in short, but this is just for demonstrational purposes. So what happens, this is now finished, and you can already see that the neckline does not lay nicely. It's wavy, it looks wobbly. I'm gonna give you a better view in just a second. Okay, here you can see it much better. This is how my t-shirt would look like this now without the neckband stretched. Horrible, don't you think? This is how it would look, because this has no stretch over the neckline like this. Even if you press it, it might look nice in the beginning, but then you wear it or wash it once and then it looks again like this. Here is my other example where I'm using the wonderful stretchy rib knit. I have pinned the neckband to my t-shirt already to get it started. I remove my pin, insert everything onto my serger, and here is where it becomes important. What you want to do, you hold the t-shirt underneath and make sure that you do not stretch it or pull it or move it in any kind of way other than aligning the cut curve later on once we get there. And what you do with your other hand, with your left hand, you hold the neckband in place like this, and you would slightly stretch it. But before you start, I like to stitch about 3-4 times just so my fabric grabs on and the needle is inserted into the material. This will prevent, once I start pulling or stretching the neckband a little bit, this will prevent my entire project to come back out. So always have the needle, once you stretch, you always have the needle in. Okay, we start like this. We take the neckband and I stretch it just a little bit over the t-shirt fabric, and then I push it down. Oops. Okay, again. I lift it up, I stretch it, and then I push it down. And now I serge. And I serge to that point where I pushed it down or pressed on it. Now I'm going to repeat this. I lift up my neckband, I pull, stretch it over the t-shirt material that I'm holding here with my right hand, and I press down. And now I serge this area. Alright, this is the beginning of the whole pull and stretch thing. Now it becomes even more important that we're going to do this with a little bit more force. Once it goes into this curve, just the curve right here, because this bottom piece is pretty much straight, so this is not that important. But this curve here, as well as on the other side, once it goes back up, this needs to have, I'm sorry, it's not very well in the video. You have got to stretch this a little bit more. Grab it, pull it, cover the material with, hold it down and serge. Now we're adjusting the fabric. I grab it here, I pull it a little bit more. Oops, my needle was not in the material. And then hold it down, press it down like this, and serge. Okay, now we're getting close to this curve that goes up into the up the shoulder area. So we want to stretch it a little bit more. Oops, sorry, needle not in the material. It's a habit, bad habit. I always have to try to remind myself. Okay, and here I'm going to not stretch that much, just a little bit. Okay, and we're going to be finished. Alright, now we see our neckline looks a little bit different. It looks much better. Okay, let's look at it a little bit closer. What do you think? I absolutely love how this rib knit creates beautiful, perfectly flat looking necklines like this. And here is also the reason why I like leaving my neckband as long as possible, and I don't give exact measurements for the neckline, is because the knit fabric stretches differently depending on what fabric you use. So some necklines might look a little bit wavy if you try to fit the exact cut of a neckband into the neck opening like this. So what I do, if I use my serger and if I don't pin the entire thing in place, then I like to leave it long and I can trim it off once I'm done and I don't need this excess piece anymore. So now we can compare the two. Here is my example piece without the neckline stretched. I can't even get it to lay straight because it's so wavy. And then here is the one with the necklines, with the band stretched. What do you think?